Okay, we're up to a new parak, the last parak in the Masechta Chagigah, and we're discussing the milas of different. We spoke out this different levels in Tumah Derabanan, levels of Chulin, Ma'aser Sheni, Truma, Kachim, and Mechatos, and that's in ascending order. And we said that certain halachas that apply to one, not to the other. This Mishnah, the parak, is going to begin with 11 differences that a chumrah that Kachim has over Truma. So rather than reading it through and basically just reading a lot of Hebrew words that I'll lose you, I have a look at your phones. I put it out there, and this is what we're going to do. Okay. Guys, you can see this? Yeah, it's pretty big on screen. Okay, there's 11. There's one cut off. We'll get to it. Okay, there's 11 chumras that Kachim has over Truma. So by Truma, the first one is matbilin kalim b'seich kalim. In other words, if you'd have a kli and you put another kli inside of it, you'll be able to immerse them simultaneously in the mikvah. One kli and we touch the other kli. Masha'en kain, you would not be able to do that. You won't be able to do that by Kachim. In other words, I have a kli. I'm going to use this kli for Truma. So for the status of Truma, it will be enough to go ahead and immerse him simultaneously. On the other hand, if I'm going to use it for Kachim, then it wouldn't be enough. You have to go ahead and immerse them separately. That's the first Maila that Kodesh has over Truma. The first one. What? This is the Rabbanans. Now, Beis, that a Kli that's made of metal or wood that became Tamei from inside with Tumas Mashkin, the Rabbanan, Ein Achorim Oimakim Tfisas Tmeim. This is much more than we need. The Mishnah is going to describe 3 parts to a kli. Let's view a kiddush cup with a handle. Sometimes a kiddush cup you have, if you turn it over, if you invert it, you have a receptacle area on the bottom. It has like a base, and if you invert it, there's a small area. I've seen a cup that the large part is the deraisa, and you turn it over, you get to share the rabbanon. So you can make kiddush deraisa Friday night and the rabbanon the next day by inverting it. You don't need the same amount of volume. And you'd have a kli that the edge. So if these become tamei, not again, and from a tumah d'rabbanon, you see, that's why the person who put this chart together is a lamdin. If it would become tamei through a tumah d'raisa, for example, if a sheretz would touch one piece of it, the whole thing would be tamei. No question about it. No question about it. But if the contraction of tumah, the transmission of tumah, is through a rabbinical vehicle, it's through the rabbanic vehicle, which would be that it's a kli that's become tummy through a mashka, a kli. One of the I don't want to get ahead of myself, but you've been there before. We saw in Masechta Shabbos that one of the gezeres the Rabbanon was that a liquid that becomes tamei gets upgraded. It goes from a sheni to a rishon. And not only does it go from a sheni to a rishon, it has the capacity to become a kli. Usually only an avatumah heshi. This is the raisa can be metama kli. But this, guys, is tumah d'rabbanon. And since tumah d'rabbanon, they were geyser, the area that it touches by truma, if you can use it for truma, that's tamei. So if it touched the handle's tamei, but the inside and the backside will be okay. Conversely, if it's speaking about kachim, then the whole thing will be tamei. So that's the second chumrah that we have. That's the second chumrah that exists. So again, kli matchis it's a kli of metal or it's not an earthenware kli. An earthenware kli does not receive tumah from the outside, right? Shenimah mesoichai b'tumas mashkin the rabbanon ein achoirav. If you got tummy on the inside, ein achoirav v'makom tfisasay tmeyan. Either it's backside or the place where you handle it's tamei. However, by kachim, nidma ech mehem tamei kulin. If one part becomes tamei, the whole pot becomes tamei. Right. May, it's not nice. You're not sharing with people, Maya. So Gimel, Maya's sitting there eating a popsicle. Gimel. Now we know that a zav is tumas midras. We spoke about this in Ein Bein Zav, right? Ein Bein Zav, Mitzvah. We spoke about zav. The tumas midras is if a zav puts pressure on something. So he sits down on a seat, lies down on a pillow, walks in his shoe. That becomes an avatuma. That becomes an avatuma. No, it doesn't go down. The zav is an avatuma. It remains linear. It stays the same level. That's the chumrah of a zav. If you could carry a shoe of a zav in one hand and truma in the other hand, but you couldn't do that by kachim. Says again, hamasa no'ol shel zav. Someone is carrying the shoe of a zav, which is called midras. Biyad echad, v'chavi escheres biyad shniya, and a barrel of an earthenware kli in his other hands. The yayin in that kli will be tahar. The yayin in that kli will be tahar. Masha came by truma, by chul, by kachim, the yayin will be tamei. So those are the first. That's the number 3. Number 4, the beged of someone who eats truma is considered midras the kodesh. Someone is makbet to eat truma, but only the level of truma. He watches the level of truma. His begadim, since only the shmir was to that level, that would fit in very good with the Hadas Hezbollah of yesterday. It was nice Hezbollah. Right? That would fit in very nicely. That since he was shomer to the level of truma, it's not to the next level. Right? Truma stops at a 3, where kachim extends to a 4. It would be what? It would be considered the tamei. Number 5, beged sheyesh by kesher, a beged that has a knot. Or you want to put a knot in it, you could do it and be matful. In other words, it wouldn't be considered a chatzitza, right, by truma. However, by kachim, if it was beged that's going to be used for kachim, you would have to take out the knot, you'd have to dry it, and then if you want, you could put it and then be toivel it. So you'd have to go ahead, you would have to take out the knot, dry it, and then be toivel it. And we'll see along the way, we'll see pitchifkas of all these differences. If you want, Rabbi, I have a hard copy here. If you want a hard copy, I have it. You good? Anyone need a hard copy? Okay, anyway. So, number 6. Kalim ishgiach aleim mituma lefnei shigamram. You finished a kli. Now, a kli can't be makabel tuma until there's gamar malacha. Until you complete it, it can't be makabel tuma. Once it's completed, then gamar malacha, it can be makabel tuma. So, let's say you completed a kli, and you watched it, and you know unequivocally that nothing was done with it. For truma, for using that kli for truma, you would not need tefillah. For kachim, you would need tefillah. For kachim, you would need tefillah. Okay, that's number 6. Number 7, you have kama chatichos oichle bekli. You have in a kli, you have pieces. One of them becomes tamei, then makes the one next to it a rishon, a sheni, shlishi, nefseles. In other words, if you would have, we know a rishon chulin can make a sheni, and a sheni can make a shlishi by truma, and it stops there. Okay, so let's say you had 6, 7 chatichos of truma, so it would only be tamei the first 3. After that, they would be tahar. And we don't say the kli that they're in combines them all together to be considered one component. However, by kachim, we do say that. And therefore, all 7 pieces in that scenario, if they were what? Piece of karbanos, they would be what? They would be tamei. They would be mitzdarf tumas. That's another chumrah that you have. Okay, that's number zayin. Number 8 is sheni rak poislas, shlishi mein revi, shlishi mitam revi. Okay, that we know for sure. We know that by truma again, guys, very important. Poisel versus tamei. Tamei means it can go one more. Poisel means it stops there. So by truma, by shlishi, it'll stop. By the level of shlishi, it stops. By kachim, it goes on one more level, the level of revi. That's number 8. Number 9, if by truma, if one hand is, now this is truma d'Rabbanan. Guys, listen, this is clearly truma d'Rabbanan. If your hand touches the sheretz, your pinky touches the sheretz, what's tamei? Your pinky, your whole body. Your whole body, right? So here, we're speaking about truma d'Rabbanan. If it touches one hand, the other hand is tahar. By truma. By kachim, the whole body's tummy. Right? By kachim, your tummy. So, no, 2 hands. You have to not the body. Not the whole, just 2 hands. I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing. Not the whole body, the hands. What? No. For you just wash one hand. Yeah, just like you just have to wash one hand. Now, Yud, Eichlin the Gavim, Biyade Tumas. Now we know food to be Makabal Tuma has to have Hachshara. We spoke out the other day. You need 2 things. You need one of the 7 liquids to fall on it, and you have to be happy with it. Let's say no liquid falls on it, and your hand's Tameh. Now, if it's Truma, you could eat it. Right? Tuma Darbana, you could eat it. Why? It's not Mukshal Kabal Tuma. However, by Kachim, you would not be able to eat it. You have to wash. Okay? You have to wash.
Even if there's no
even if it's not wet, even when it's not Muksha. Now, finally, number Yud Aleph, Ha'oizen, Ha'oinin, a person that's an Onain, that's the day of the Kfura, L'chusa Kippurim, someone who needs a kapara. There's certain people that the easiest way to remember this, fellas, if it's Tumah that's Yoitzami Gufay. In other words, the Tumah is an internal Tumah. Internally, there's an external Tumah and there's an internal Tumah. An internal Tumah is usually the most severe with the exception of a mace. An internal Tumah, a Zav, a Mitzayra, a Nida, a Yoledes, right? They're Tameh from inside themselves. These people, a Zava, they're going to have to bring, aside from waiting 7 days and going to the mikvah, to eat kachim, they're going to have to go ahead, right, and bring a carbon. They're mechusa kippurim. They're missing their kapara. Even after they go to the mikvah, before they eat kachim, they have to go to the mikvah again. For truma, they don't. No, so you finish the process, before you eat the kachim, got to go to the mikvah again. By truma, you don't. Those are the 11. Those are 11. No, yeah. What? What? At night. I'm saying, what? No. No, it's after Zaninus is over. After Zaninus is over, right? After it means after Zaninus is over. Someone who's coming out from his Zaninus. So again, it's a good thing to have. I'm going to go through it quickly, just one more time, because I'm going to go through the ones that we're going to spend this time leaving. Kli mitoich kli is we're going to spend our evening on tonight. So that's the first one. I'll keep it on the chart. We'll be referring back to it because obviously the parak is going to go through each one. So tonight, what we have to know is kli mitoich kli. By truma, if I'm going to use that kli for truma, you could be toivel one keli inside another keli, right? Masha enkein by kachim you cannot. Okay, so those are the 11. Hopefully, it'll be helpful. We're going to go through the Mishnah now. We'll see it again, and hopefully that hakdama would make it easier. I definitely think it will. Chayme b'kodesh truma. A chumrah that kodesh has over truma is shemat bitlum kelim mitoich kelim letruma avloy lekodesh. For truma, you can be toivel what that are both tamei. If you're going to use them for truma, you could be toivel mitoich, right? Each one mitoich the other. Conversely, if it's for what for kachim, you cannot. Achurayim, the back, that's the base of the kli, v'toich, and the inside of the kli. Ubeis ha'etztaba, and the handle of the kli, bitruma. There, each one is considered a third. Each one is considered a separate entity by truma. Avalei b'kodesh, but not b'kodesh. But again, this has to be a tumah derabbanan, guys. Look at Rashi. Rashi's geshmak. Ubeis hatzviyah l'truma. Kli aroy l'shtamish b'soichai u'me'achorov ubeis tzviyasai. You can use all of these 3 components of the kli. You can use the handle, the inside, and the backside. Kol tashmish of a tashmish shabai choshev kli b'fnei atzmai. Each tashmish is considered its own kli. Le'inyan truma, that what? Shem nitma zeh le'nitma zeh, that if this part became tamei, the other part's not tamei. And underline this if you have your own Gemara. Ubetumis derabanan k'amar k'dmefarish b'Gemara. And what are we speaking about, guys? We're speaking about truma derabanan, Harold, right? It has to be, like you said, it has to be. It can't be deraisa. If a sheretz would touch the kli, the whole thing is tamei. If it's a tumah deraisa, an avatuma, any avatuma, sheretz, a person that is any avatuma would touch it, it would be completely. So again, Rashi is giving us an understanding, a basic understanding of this. Hanoisi as a midras, okay, we define midras as what? As a shoe. A Zav shoe, which he walked and put pressure on, you're carrying it. Noisei as a truma. You can carry truma in another barrel. A barrel of truma you can carry. Avalei is a kodesh, but you can't carry kachim, right? You can't carry kachim. Big day eichel truma. The beggar of a person who's eichel truma, midrash the kodesh. His shmira is what for that level, right? Not helpful what for someone who eats kachim. Loi kemidas a kodesh midas a truma. This seems to be extraneous. Rashi Tosfos explains. Just since we're learning so many differences, right? Like midas a kodesh midas a truma. Shebe kodesh matir. By kodesh, if you're going to immerse a tamei dika kli for kodesh, beged, they had tumas begodim. Matir, you'd have to untie any knot. Umenagef, and you'd have to go ahead and menagef. You'd have to dry it out. Umatvil, and you'd be toivelit. V'achach kosher, and then tie it. With truma kosher, you could tie it. V'achach matvil, and then okay. If we have time, we'll get back to this. Why do you have to dry it, guys? Wet lach is not a chatzitza. Why do you have to dry it?
That what makes the tumor. I would say it's wet. That's what makes it.
You're putting it in a mikveh. You're putting it in a mikveh. Wait, it's not a chatzitza. The reason you take the knot out is because the knot is chatzitza. It's a partition to stop the water during the immersion to get to all areas. But if it's we had earlier in the Masechta in Kahanim standing on it's stabayit, right, and there's blood there, so it isn't right. And we said either above that or it's lach, it's a double lach. Since it's a double lach, it's something that's wet. It's not a chatzitza. Okay, if we have time, we'll get back to it. I don't want to get off track. Next, kalim hanigmarim b'tayra, kalim that you completed b'tayra. In other words, you're an artisan. And you made a kli, and you know for sure it was kli. It doesn't. You don't even have to watch it before. And guys, you just have to watch b'shas the completion. It's b'tayra, because since you go after the completion of the kli, a kli can't be makabel tuma until there's gemar malach. In other words, you could have a sheretz, you could have a dead snake sitting on this kli, and it's not complete yet. Throw the sheretz off, complete the kli in gansin tahar. So you completed this b'tayra. Before you use it for kachim, it requires tefillah. Avalei truma, but not for truma. Good. See, we switched over here, right? Initially, we were speaking. We went for truma over kachim, and now we're going back. And that's why the Mishnah in the middle said like midas hakodesh midas truma. In other words, initially we spoke about the chumras that. The leniency that truma has over kachim, and now we're speaking about the chumras that kachim has over truma. It's a little nuance. So now we spoke at the kli is mitzarif in anything that's in the kli by kachim comes together. The fact that it's in one kli goes ahead and makes it one component. Versus truma, only the kli's tame would be matama X, Y, and Z, and would stop there. Okay, hakli mitzarif mashpech lekodesh avalei letruma. Haravi b'kodesh pasal. Again, by Ravi b'kodesh, it doesn't go further than that pasal. By shlishi b'truma, and shlishi pasals by truma. It's always one step down. This is aleph base, guys. This is aleph base. You know, aleph base with truma is chulin is a sheni, can only go to a sheni. Truma can go to a shlishi, and kachim can go to Ravi. Truma im nitmas achas miyadav chavei rasai tahira. If one of your hands became tamei, again, but tumah derabanan, yechava wa'ad is tar, right? Yechava is tar. The other hand is tara. U'b'kodesh matbel shteim, you have to go ahead. Why? Sheyad metames chaverta. B'kodesh. Avalei b'truma. What? Yeah, just switch back. Now, and look what he says. Sheyad metames chaverta b'kodesh avalei b'truma. Right? It's interesting. Oichlin the gruvim b'yadayim b'suavos. If you have dried fruit. That dried fruit, that means they were never mukhshal kabel toma. They never had the preparatory state of being kabel toma, and you could eat them with yadayim su'avais, meaning that you didn't wash your hands. But truma, now again, you gotta wash your hands because your hands are shniyos. Avaloi b'kodesh, but not b'kodesh. Amir Aleph, ha'oina u'mechusa kippurim. An oinen, when he finishes his aninas, right? And shaloi nitma b'meisai, guys. It has to be that he wasn't nitma b'meisai, because then he'd be mechus. Then he'd have to. Then he'd tummy to mismace. Right. So Rashi throws in a little adjoinder over here, right? Rashi says ha'oinin, but it's got to be that he wasn't ma'at netam l'meis, because then this halacha would apply. Ha'oinin mechus kippurim, right? I'll just take this call for a second. Hello. Yes. Hi, this is Eliezer Stern. How are you? Yeah, that's my. She's coming over now. That's my daughter. Hello, can you hear me? So okay, yeah. So she called you up whether she's coming over. I can't hear you. I can't. Yeah, I'm here. Now I can hear you. Yes. Put it on two. Okay, so now, Einin Mechusik Kippurim, again, it's people who have to be in Karbanis before they're completely eat Kachim. Tzrichet Tefillah L'Kodesh Abel Truma, they would go ahead and so those are the 11. Okay, let's not go over them again because you just forget them anyway. So let's go to the first one, Kli Mitoy Kli. Okay, now B'Kodesh my time aloi. What's the reason that a Kli inside another Kli? Why by Kachim could you not immerse them together? So Amrab Ilah. The heaviness of the kli is chaytzitz. Picture this. Guys, look at my hand. There's a kli. This is a kli. You're going to put it in the water. So no water is going to get in between my palm and the bottom of the bottle. So therefore, it's not going to be a good immersion on this or this. This area is not going to be exposed to the water, and this area is not going to be exposed to the water. The question is, why does it help by truma, right? Okay, so now for this, let's go to Chaf Beis Amid Aleph. Chaf Beis Amid Aleph. I'm recording. Chaf Beis Amid Aleph. There's Rashi Dimar Maskul Leman Karmin Chaverim. It's a little past the halfway point, a little more than about 4 or 5 lines past the halfway point. The Dimar Maskul is Leman Karminon Chaverim. You have it, guys? Okay, you have it on Chaf Beis Amid Aleph. Leman Karminon Chaverim. Lemi Onu Oimrim Harazu. Who are we saying this psak to? We'll see what that means tomorrow. Shlayitbul Kli b'toich Kli. Who are we speaking to when we say don't immerse one Kli in touch another Kli? Who are we speaking to? Lechaver. It's speaking to a chover. It's speaking to what? It's speaking to someone who is makbid in Yonei Tumah V'Tayra. Not what you're thinking, Dr. Press. It's someone who's makbid in Tumah V'Tayra. You know, he's classified as a chover. The ilu amaretz layosi kaman l'mishul, and amaretz is not even coming to ask the shaila. Hilkach litruma lekala mechesh. For truma, we're not worried. The hameda yada shir iruv makvois. They know the shir of Iruv Mikvois. We'll get into that soon. Uleinik Feder Shel Kli Nami. That's what we need. Uleinik Feder Shel Kli Nami Im Kaved Hu Makbiin Oisai. And if it's heavy, he'll lift it up. Masha'en came by Kodesh will even be more mach when we say no. Even there we're concerned. So this would answer the question. It's taka chatzitza. But since the person who's asking is a chaver who knows epis, he's not going to go ahead and immerse it without taking it up. By Kodesh, again, that's the mila of Kodesh. One more, we will be concerned. So very geschmack. That Rashi is important Rashi. So now, the Kodesh by time Eloi, Rabbi Eloi, back by us, if they shekfeder shel kli chaitzitz. Fred the Gemara, v'hamid the seifa mishum chatzitza, reishalam mishum chatzitza. The Ketani Seifa, v'loi kemidas a Kodesh midas a truma, shebe Kodesh matir, by Kodesh you must undo a knot, umenagiv and dry it out, umatbil, v'yakach kosher, and then knot it, ubetruma kosher, v'yakach matbil. In other words, later on in our listing of the chumras that Kodesh has over truma, we come to chatzitza. What din is that? The din that if you have something that's Kodesh, a garment, and it's tight, what are we worried about? That the water will not get in the knot. So you go ahead and you take it out. So that's concerning chatzitza. So Fred the Gemara, how could you tell me the kli mitoy kli is a chatzitza problem? If it's a chatzitza problem, we should have listed it with that. We should have put it together with that, not as two separate things. That's the Gemara's Gavaldic Kasha. Usually the Gemara has the Mishnah has symmetry to it. Over here, you tell me, din number 1 is because of this, and din number 5 is because of this. Says the Gemara, Reisha v'seif, and for the Gemara, Reisha v'seif mishum chatzitza. They're both chatzitza. They're both chatzitza. No, it's not only symmetry, you're telling me the same din. Guys, I think that, let me be masbeh better. It's not necessary. In other words, once you told me that we are more makbid by chatzitza, by kaitzish, I would know the din. I would know the din. In other words, why say it? That's a better shot. Reisha v'seif chatzitza v'tzricha. They're both chatzitza. Rav Ila is right. You're worried about the heaviness of the kli, and you're worried about when the garment is tied together. You're both worried about chatzitza v'tzricha, and you need to tell me both. Di Ashmina Reisha, only the case of kli mitoich kli. Have Amina, I would have thought. Hainu taima de lekaydish loy mishum kfeidish shel kli. The ikka, since it has a heaviness there, and it's certainly a chatzitza. Aval seifa the leka kfeidish shel kli. Over there, it's not such a chatzitza. Obviously, it can't be so tight because by truma you're saying it's not a chatzitza. So over there, obviously, maybe even you'd say by kaidish that this type of chatzitza is not a chatzitza. So it says the Gemara. What would you say? Aval sefer the leka kfeidish shel kli ema lekaidish nami lo you have a chatzitza. So that's what I would say. So you need to tell me no. You need to tell me that even so that you don't have the kfeidus of the kli like the first case. This case will be considered a chatzitza. What number is that? Just to get the right. Number 5, right? Number 5 will be considered chatzitza. That's the tzrichatza according to now. What about, so tell me number 5 and don't tell me number 1. If it's the chatzitza by what? By the kli, by the beged, it should be chatzitza by the kli. V'yashmin seifa havamin hainu taima the lekaydish lo yimishuma midbeis the kitra b'maya aduki medak. In other words, when you put a knot in water, what's the tendency of the knot? To get tighter. And therefore, look at Rashi. You see, it's not mamish chatzitza. Of course, mamish chatzitza again, for sure. It's karv to be chaitzitz. And that's why by kach you might say not. Aval reisha, the maya akpuya machbele. In other words, guys, in my scenario, right, over here, if my hand's immersed in water, what does water have the capacity to do? It makes things float a little bit. So once it floats up, hey, well, as soon as it floats up, you have a good immersion right over there. So maybe they'd be moida by klimitay kli by kachim, not right. So you have a chumrah of kfeidah shel kli. You have a chumrah of what? Of the wetness making it tighter. So you need both. Avoresha demaya akpuye makbele lemana lo yavi chatzitza. So tzricha you need both. Good. Now comes guys. According to Rav Eloi, how many milas do you have in a Mishnah? You don't have 11. You got 10. Guys, important. According to Rav Ilah, who says chatzitza, number 1 and number 5 are the same. Number 5 is chatzitza. The knot is chatzitza. So you don't have 11 milas, you have only 10. So says the Gemara, Rav Ilah l'tamei. And Rav Ilah, who says that the reason for kli mitay kli doesn't work is going according to his reasoning. The Amar Rabbi Loi, Amar Rab Chanina bar Papa, Esa milus shanu kan. We only learn what? 5 milus that Kachim has over Truma. Chamesh Rishonis ben Kodesh ben Chulin, Shenasu al Taras HaKodesh. This might be the answer to your question, Rabbi. Chamesh Rishonis, the first five are not only in Kodesh, but even Chulin that we treat as Kodesh. We spoke out yesterday that people who are super makbid in Tumah V'Taira, they would treat their chulin like kachim. We said yesterday, our Mishnah is mashma that has a din of kachim. So this mila would also apply to that. So if you're makbid to teach your chulin of Taras HaKodesh, you wouldn't be able to use your kli for chulin if it's kli mitay kli. Yeah, guys, listen to this chumrah. If I treat my chulin like kachim, I would not be able to use my kli for chulin for kachim. Why? Because chulin shenas al taras l'kodesh is kodesh. So the first 5 would apply to that. Achraynos, the latter 5, l'kodesh would only be the kodesh. Avaloi l'chulin shenas al taras l'kodesh. Okay, my timer. What's the difference? We'll do Rashi in a second. My time. What's the difference? Chamesh kamaisa deislu drora de tuma the 5 first early ones that have a draw, a commonality with Tumah, Midaraisa, they all have a shaykhus, the best shaykhus to Tumah Daraisa, Gazaber Rabbanon, Ben Kodesh, Ben Lechul Shlas Terza Kodesh. Basraisa, the latter 5, the less lu draw with the Tumah, Midaraisa, they don't have a shaykhus, they don't have a connection to Midaraisa, Gazaber Rabbanon Lekodesh, however, Lechul Shlas Terza Kodesh, like Gazaber Rabbanon. Okay, so now we have a teretz. Let's go through the teretz. We have a tzrichasa, we have a Rabbi Loi Shita. Why klimitoy klinat, guys? Why klimitoy klinat? Is because the kfeidah shall kli, it's a din chatzitza. Fred Gemara, it's a din chatzitza, you repeated the case by the beggar that's tied. It says the more you need tzrichasa, right? By kfeidah, I would say it's the heaviness to the kli. By chatzitza, by the beggar, I'd say it's the water making it tighter. So therefore, where's the 5-5? There's 2 distinct ones. The first 5 is shaykhus to Tumah Daraisa, and therefore what? It's shaykh by not only by kodesh, but even by chulish and nasa tarsa kodesh. The latter 5 that don't have a shaykhus to what? To kachim Daraisa, only the Rabbanon would only apply to kodesh, but the Maila would not apply to what? To chulish and nasa tarsa kodesh. And that's the breakup in the Mishnah in the middle. I think because of brevity, you'll see the Rashis yourself if you want to. This is a second opinion, guys. There's a second opinion as to why as a kli mitay kli by kodesh not. Okay, now by way of introduction, in mikvahs there's a concept of taking an existing mikvah and connecting it to a non-existing mikvah. So I have 40 saw over here and I have 20 saw over here. Through something called hashaka, I'm able to connect it. That's provided the tube that connects it has the share of sheferes hanoid. They used to have, instead of plastic bottles, they had leather bags. In the leather bags, they would have a tube coming out. That tube would be used as the spout. It would be used as a spout. It's the shear is, sheferes hanoid is the shear of 2 fingers that you can go like this, inside like this. So what we're worried about is the following. If we let you do kli mitoich kli, maybe one of the kalim, the larger kli, right? The larger kli, the opening is not the shir sheferes hanoid. You're going to put it in the mikvah. We will consider whatever's in there as not connected to the mikvah, because even if you immerse it, whatever water goes in is not going to be connected to the mikvah because it doesn't have that shir. The shir has to be this, and the shir is this. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried that if we let you do this, right? If we let you do this, like you may come to go ahead. And in a regular kli, you may come to immerse it in a kli that has such a tiny opening. So by truma, I'm not worried about this gezerah, right? And by kachim, I am worried about the gezerah. That's Rava's din. Says Rava. Rava says it differently. He argues on Rabbi. Rava Amar mid the seifa havi mishum chatzitza. When the case of the beggar that's tied was because of chatzitza, reisha lav mishum chatzitza. The reisha, the first case of kli mitoy kli, is not because of chatzitza. So he's going to have 11, guys. He's going to have 11. For Reisha Hainu Taima, what's the reason the Reisha, you can't put one Kli mitach another Kli? Is Gezerah Shlayatful Machtin B'tzinoires B'Kli She'ein B'Piv Kisheferes Hanoid. Here's what I'm worried about. You have a needle. You have a tzinoris is a type of a fork they used to spin gold on. Very tiny. You can't throw them in a mikvah. Think about, remember you being toivel the kalim, guys? How many pieces on the bottom you see silverware on the and you can should go like, you need one for Pesach, go there. You get, your wife wants to know how come nothing matches. You go, it was cheap. You go to the bottom of the mikveh, you can get all different types of pieces. They fall through. So it would make sense if you're going to put these little tiny things in a kli, right? It's a small kli. So it doesn't have a lot. No. So now, what would make sense? You put it in, it's got a big opening, put it in a mikveh, water goes in, it's attached to a mikveh, it's great. But what we're worried about is you're going to put it in a kli that's not small. Therefore, it's not in the mikveh. So I'm geyser, if we let you use kli mitay kli, you may come to use kli mitay kli where one of the openings is not the shir sheferes hanoid. And we know to connect an existing mikveh, it has to be the opening sheferes hanoid, as we'll see right now. Kedetnan, erev mikvahs, the mixing up mikvahs. That was the Rashi we saw in Chapez. The lashon of mixing of a mikveh is sheferes hanoid. The shir is like the sheferes, the tube kinoid of a leather flask, like its thickness, ukichalala, and like its opening, meaning you need the circumference. You need the outer circumference, not just the cholol, the thickness of the wall. In other words, we need the outer circumference of the thing, right? Kishtei etzbois chayzaros, like two etzbois that you can maneuver around. Limkoima. Now, Savala kahadam Rav Nachman Amar Rabba Ravua Yud Aleph Ma'ilei Shanukan, and Rava, who says it's different reasoning, has 11. It's not the same chatzitza. He has 11. So therefore, what? Yeah, you'd have that amount. Sheish Rishonos bein lekodesh bein lechulin shenasal taros lekodesh. Achronos lekodesh avalei lechulin shenasal taros lekodesh. In other words, he would make the same distinction. The first 5, which has a shaykhus to what? To draw it of tumah. He would make that distinction. Whereas what? Whereas the latter 5, the first 6 that I said. Yeah, the first 6. The latter 5 would only be in kodesh and not chulin shenasal taros lekodesh. Says the Gemara. Bein the Rava lid the Rebbe loy. What's the difference between them? Halachically, it could be nayu is sal v'ger gusni shemaleim kalim v'tbilan. You have a big basket. Girgusni is a wine strainer. Shemaleim kalim, they're full of kalim v'tbilan, and you put them in a mikvah. Lemanda mishum chatzitza ikka. Like the concern of Rabbi Ila is still there. Because no matter what you put it in, the kfedus of the clear is going to be on top of it. In other words, there's nothing to be geyser atu because there's no such elephant. It doesn't exist. So we beautiful nafkamina. Like Rabbi Loi, who says the reason for kfeda is the kli doesn't work. No matter what kli it is, no matter what the size, you'd have to worry about this. Like Rava, who says the reason is I'm worried about a kli that doesn't have a hole this size, right? And so I'm geyser a regular kli to this because this exists in the kalim world. In the world of sal and baskets, in the world of girgusni, this doesn't exist. Since this doesn't exist, you would be able to go ahead and be matama. You'd be makbel kli mitoich kli. Thank you for listening. Challenging Gemara, but